Hello, Bainbridge. I'm Stefan Goldby, President and CEO of the Bainbridge Chamber. Ahead of the upcoming elections, welcome to this community conversation with one of the candidates for City Council. In the interests of fairness, we're asking all candidates 12 questions that knowledgeable Chamber members have helped us write, though a candidate's answers may lead to individual follow-ups or requests for clarification. Each candidate will have up to 45 minutes to answer those 12 questions. None of the candidates have seen the questions in advance, and their answers will be presented in full. With all of that in mind, I'd like to say hello to candidate for, let's see here, District 2, North Ward. Welcome, Brenda. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me.
So let's get right into it.
Okay.
Community engagement. Obviously, you've been serving on council for a while here with pretty significant community engagement, including that and outside of that. Can you talk a little bit about which island organizations you've worked with, for, volunteered at, just general engagement with the community?
Okay, well, I've been involved in quite a bit. I guess I'll start from the beginning. When I first moved here, maybe about 12, 15 years ago, I kind of lose track. The first group that I got involved with was the Bainbridge Prepares. You know, I had people come out to my house and I held a neighborhood get together so that we could map our neighborhood. And it's amazing to know that all of these years later, they're still mapping neighborhoods. And so I'm glad to see that that's still in progress. After that, I got involved with the Race Equity Network, which actually turned into the Race Equity Advisory Council. And I was one of the first members to be allowed to participate in that group. So what we were trying to do was to let Bainbridge know that there were other races on the island and that there were issues around race equity. So working with them, I actually had a chance to work with the Climate Action Plan to try to put an equity lens on the tool that they were using. Since I've been on council, I've been a liaison to the sustainability transportation actions that are going on. I'm also a board commissioner for the Housing Kitsap, and I'm still a liaison for the Race Equity Task Force. I've done a lot of things. I'm sure I'm going to miss some. And then I'm going to think about it later and say, wait, I'm part of those groups also. But yeah, I try to get involved in as much as I can because I think that my perspective, I need to be able to give my perspective on those issues.
So as you've been now actively campaigning, talking to islanders for a while, what do you think are the top 3 concerns you hear from the community?
Different things, and it's people generally get involved. I'm always saying this because of something that impacts them. My first involvement with the local politics had to do with the roundabout because it's right behind my house. And, so you really don't get involved unless it's something that really impacts you. And that's good because that's the way to get in. But what I was hearing about earlier, and we had a chance to address some of it, had to do with affordable housing. It just seemed really hard for us to get some of that off the ground. And I was speaking to someone else the other day, and it seems that there are some topics that are taboo that you can't even talk about. If you mention the Suzuki property, people get all up in an uproar. And I don't pretend to know the history around it, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it. But affordable housing and certain properties that are taboo, we really need to get the ball going on them, whatever we're going to do with it. But affordable housing, we addressed some of that this week, and that was good. I hear a lot about people who are interested in what we're doing for sustainable transportation. The businesses and the economy and how COVID has impacted everybody. I'm really proud of Bainbridge, the way they came together and was able to get the CARES funds out to help the businesses and kind of lessen some of that impact. And it was mainly a lot of community effort to continue visiting the businesses, even if we did it online, or, you know, my husband and I, we would go to Streamliner and order 4 meals, you know, for just us two. And, you know, so this kind of community activism and action that we have really kind of outlines the kind of people that live here. And, you know, so there's a lot going on that I get emails on the environment, and it just about any issue that's on our agenda, I get at least 5 emails from the community. And that to me means that we're, you know, we're invested in what's going on. It didn't feel like we were invested in it before I got into it. It was like people on the outside reading the paper and making judgments, you know, but you have to really get in there to see what we're doing and to listen to the meetings and understand how we go through the process. It's not as simple as it looks.
The recent draft of the countywide land usage report suggests that while the island's growth is roughly on track to hit the projected 2036 levels, the growth itself hasn't been happening in line with our community's stated comp plan. Do you agree with that? And how do you think the island's residential, commercial, and community needs can best be balanced with preservation of our natural resources?
Well, you know, I'm a firm believer of reports stating whatever your intent is for that report to state. And, you know, I think that what we're doing here is we're growing at the rate that we think we can sustain. You know, we can't be bound by what other people, you know, think we should be doing. We have to look at our resources, our infrastructure, and how we can sustain people and buildings and, you know, and families and the transportation. I mean, there's a whole wide range of issues like water and, you know, that we have to be looking at. We can't just say, oh, you know, by this year, we're going to have that many people. And I think we are growing at the kind of rate that we want to grow at. You know, we have to be in control of that. I'm sure, you know, they can project what they think we should be doing, but they're not projecting all of the other items, like how much water do we have, or do we want to turn into a place where that's a problem? So,
what do you think requires the most urgent update within the current Winslow master plan?
well, I think for me, you know, I've always wondered, you know, why Winslow, the downtown core, it seems to be half finished, for a better way to say that. One end of it is thriving, and the other end, there's nothing going on. And there's never been too much going on. And it seems like to me a waste of prime retail, you know, buildings that could house, and parking is there. And I just don't know what we're doing with that. And I guess I need to start asking those questions, because that's something that's been on my mind for a while. I think we can stand more retail down in the core, down at that end of Winslow.
COVID's prompted sort of unprecedented shifts in the operations of businesses, of nonprofits, and of the city itself. What parts of that pivot do you think will turn out to be permanent changes, and how can the city best support them?
Well, I think part of our problems are going to come from what we're seeing, you know, countrywide. There is a reduction of women in the workforce due to COVID. They won't be coming back, and it's due to a variety of reasons. The majority of the reasons are a lot of the women were Black and brown people who have to stay home now and take care of their kids, you know. And so when we look at that, there's a wide range of issues that causes for for us. You can think about it in terms of the funding that we get for school children. That's going to be impacted because if people can't work, they can't live here, they can't send their kids to school, we won't get the funding from the government. That's one side of it. What can we do to try to help that? I was trying to introduce some action around the ARPA funds that would help home health, not home health, but home care providers, because they weren't eligible for any of that CARES funding, right? So if you have people who can find, suitable care for their kids, they can go back to work, and then that would mitigate some of those issues. And it's things like that we have to, as a community, as a council, we need to dig into, how do we help the community? How do we help people? Who do we need to be supporting? It's all well and good to put a lot of money in our basket for affordable housing, but we still need to find other baskets of other people that we need to help. What we did with the hazard pay for the grocery store workers is just another example of that, of trying to support people who are impacted the most by COVID. Sure, I don't think anybody thought that the federal government would put out as much money as they did for the businesses. And even that wasn't enough, right? But there were a lot of people that didn't get any funds at all. And there's a lot of businesses that didn't qualify. So we need to look at those that didn't qualify and find out how do we help them now, because they're still impacted. Just because the CARES funds are running out doesn't mean that people doesn't still need it. So, it's just a lot of questions around that. Who are we missing? Who didn't get help?
Going back to the affordable housing, which is obviously uppermost in 3.75 million minds on the island. One of the biggest current challenges for the business community has obviously been finding new employees over recent months. And I think you've already been talking about part of the reason for that, for sure. But one of the other biggest struggles that those potential hires often point to is the lack of affordable workforce housing in our community. Do you agree with that? And if so, what practical steps are you prepared to take to address the island's need for more affordable housing?
Well, I'm a firm believer in the plan that the council has to do an inventory of the housing on Bainbridge, because we can keep throwing out, yeah, we need this, yeah, we need that, but we really don't know what we have. So we don't know what we need, and so what I'd like to see once we get that information back is the affordable housing that we're planning on building and partnering with our partners to build. We need to make sure that if it is workforce housing, that we can set some of that affordable housing to the side for that specific nature. There's talks with some of the religious institutions about how they can partner with us to build affordable housing, how we can all partner together with HRB, Bethany, and whoever else has property to do that. And I'm sure if we determine that, yeah, we can build some housing on some of these properties without, damaging any of our rural character, or, people get into a tizzy about that. It's like, don't mess up the rural character, and that's fine, I get that. But if these businesses and these religious entities want to build, we ought to be able to try to help them and, maybe set aside some of that affordable housing for workplace housing. So, workforce housing, sorry.
Well, multimodal, you get workplace housing. Anyway, how best can equity and diversity be increased on Bainbridge?
Well, I tell everybody this, and it's just such a simple thing. I don't say it to offend anybody. I say it because it probably just needs to be said. You can only increase equity and diversity from where you are, right? as preparing for this, I go on your website. The first thing I'm looking at is how equitable is this group. I don't see much, and I know, it's not meant to be harsh or anything, but I know your website is under construction somewhat, and your demographics go back to 2015. I mean, come on, Stefan, let's update that.
Oh, it desperately needs it. I absolutely agree.
Because, when people look at that, if they're thinking about coming to Bainbridge and having a business here, trying to figure out the lay of the land, let's give them the right picture. But that's what I tell people. Start where you are, wherever you work, wherever you play, wherever you go, look around you and see how diverse it is. And then look and see what you can do to add to that. And don't allow people to tell you those kind of jokes. Don't allow them to tell you things that that you don't believe in. Stop them right there at the pass, whatever. Now, what can we do as a city for diversity and equity? We need to let our Race Equity Advisory Council do what their name says. They should be advising the council on race equity. They're not doing that right now. They're trying to, but they're still growing, and the city has not really gotten in line with them doing that type of work. And that was the whole purpose, was to look at those policies and projects that we as a city have adopted and to determine whether or not they are equitable for all. So that's what we can do.
What do you think that the overall trend of falling enrollment in Bainbridge's highly rated and well-funded public school district is most indicative of?
Well, it's just too hard to live here. It's too hard to live here. And there's a lot of different reasons. Now, if you're sticking with equity, there's been a lot of kids who have been in the Bainbridge school systems over the years who are Black and brown, who've had problems and who've reported those problems, and there was no action taken, and people have to get involved on a local level, and it can get quite dicey. My son lived here with me for 2 years, and he really wanted no part of this. And I joked to people, I said it was so bad that he went back to Detroit, and that's the truth. And, so there's things that we need to change. We need to change how we welcome people. And that was a whole part of the welcoming signs, and this goes for all people. We don't welcome people into the community the way that used to happen. There's no welcoming committee coming to tell you where the churches are, or, where the PTA meetings are, and, and where the parent groups meet. But that's, I think, a part of that Seattle freeze that they told me about when I first moved here. But what can we do? We can be more neighborly. It's hard for people to come out of their comfort bubble and to realize that, it just takes a little bit of niceness and not trying to tear people down, to just make friends with people and welcome them into your community so that they can, enjoy the same things that you're enjoying.
Should Bainbridge be taking a leadership position in reducing waste, educating consumers, and promoting reusable items in our community's everyday life? And if so, what do you think the key initiatives should be in that area?
I think we already are. I think we are a leader. We're getting rid of our plastics. We're doing things that they're not doing anywhere else. We're trying to do it at a systematic level, trying to be in partnership with the businesses that's going to have to shoulder the weight of all of this. But it's a plan, and it's a plan that I think everybody can get behind. It's just about how are we rolling it out so the impact isn't just shouldered on the one group, the restaurants, and the little things like, if I have a candy store, do I have to, it's working out all of the details. But I think we already are a leader as far as it goes to plastics and waste. And we know here on Bainbridge what we're trying to do to save the environment. And there's so many different groups on Bainbridge that have been trying to do this for years. I'm just coming in on the tail end of it, but you got Sustainable Bainbridge, you just got so many groups here that really have gotten in front of this thing, and we're going to show the rest of the country that we are leading the way.
So with only limited time and resources to tackle all of these challenges of Bainbridge life, can you name 1 to 3 specific actions that you would like to define the legacy of this potential 4-year term of office?
But, things are going to come up that I'm going to be, I tell my campaign manager, there are certain hills that I'm willing to die for, right? I'll stand on it and shout it out to the masses, and affordable housing is one. I think the more that we can make people understand the benefits of it for the community, that it's not a bad thing, that diversity is what always have made this country great. It's not, we're not endorsing ghettos and things like that. There's a lot of misconception around affordable housing and tiny homes and ADUs and, those type of things. But so that would be one hill that I'm willing to die for, and sustainable transportation, networking all of our modals, if you will, and helping people feel safe when they're on the road. You don't have to be in a car all the time. And if I had back trails and ways to get downtown to Winslow from the north end, like I said, that's my ideal of success when it comes to sustainable transportation. How am I getting around? Can I get around on my bike, or can I just walk, if I wanted to? So that's my other goal. And, the climate, the environment, I am really pleased that the one thing that has the one thing that has impressed me the most is what we're doing with the climate. We have great people on council who have great expertise in certain things like solar, and they talk about biodiesel and how we're going to reuse the water. And, it's just amazing that I do think that Bainbridge is leading the way in a lot of these areas. And I am just honored to be a part of it. I don't really plan on leaving a legacy. I just want to push things along to get them going. I don't have to be the one where they said, Brenda introduced this. No, I don't have to introduce anything. I just need to be the one that help you push it along. So yeah.
What kind of working atmosphere will you strive to create if re-elected to City Council?
Well, I've always said that the main reason that I wanted to be on council was because I thought they needed to be a little bit more collaborative and a little bit more nicer to each other. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and I don't know if maybe it's because I'm not a politician, but I don't like the idea that if you say you're for this and I say I'm against it, I have to knock you down to say it. I can just say I'm against it. I don't have to talk about you at all. It's a cordial way to work with each other, is what I'd like to promote. I mean, there are many people at my day job that I do not like, but I can work with them because that's the professional way to be. And I would like to see that happen. And it has since I've been there on the council. It's a lot less combative, and there's no breaking news at 8, who told who what. And, that's just ridiculous, because at the end of the day, the reason we are all there is to serve our community. And it's what the community wants. It's not my personal opinion and my personal agenda. It's trying to make sure that there are services for everybody on Bainbridge, and that we're spending the money wisely, and that we are above board, and we're transparent and letting the community know what we're doing. So that's the way I feel about that.